Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Human Services, Clarence H. Carter.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. And I want to thank all of you for bearing up with us for the last 2.5 days. We had a vision of bringing Tennessee together around the existential crisis of fatherlessness. Not to wring our hands and say, woe is us, but to say, what are we going to do about it, Tennessee? And that is what we have convened to do here today. And so it is my privilege to bring up our leader. A little bit more than 2.5 years ago, there was an amazing convergence of issues. I was coming towards the end of my previous assignment. My predecessor in this job had tendered her resignation. And there was a particular crisis in the agency that the governor and the agency had been working on solving. And because in my last stop, I headed the federal agency that oversaw that program. And the governor said to me very simply, do you think that you can help us navigate this challenge? And I said, Governor, I believe that I can help you navigate that challenge, but you need to know that there are many other challenges in your human services system. And I said, not of Tennessee's own making, it's the way that the federal system is problematic in its design and execution. And I started to rattle off some of those, and he stopped me at a point and he said, look, okay, we have this one pressing problem, and if you can help us with that one pressing problem, I'm happy to entertain all the rest of this vision. And so between the governor, the legislature, and our agency, we came together to put a plan in place to solve the primary problem. And that plan is in place and it is executing well. And so we have moved beyond that plan and are beginning to look at the other issues attendant to the problems of the safety net. And the governor, very true to his word, has enabled us to literally create a whiteboard to transform Tennessee's safety net. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the 50th governor of the state of Tennessee, Bill Lee. Governor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. You talked about a convergence of circumstances that led to your coming here. I tend to say that's how God works, is he puts circumstances together that bring leaders like you into our state that understand what's needed for the moment. And I'm very grateful for your leadership and for your real philosophical approach to how it is that we take care of the neediest in our community, and how it is that we not just take care of them, but that we provide a path for them that will take care of them far better than we ever could. And you and I share that desire, and so do you. And that's why you're here. And I'm very, very grateful for each one of you. I was thinking about what you do and this whole subject of fatherhood and why that is important to the work that we do in Department of Human Services, really to the work that we do across multiple agencies. We have other commissioners here. And I hearkened back to some of the work I did before I became governor, when the things that actually created an interest in me to run for public service. And I worked at a at-risk inner city youth program and with an organization that mentors kids that are in the toughest neighborhoods and the toughest spots in our state. And I can remember one kid that I became very close to and connected with and spent a whole lot of time with. And I remember the day that I figured out, because of I needed some documentation to help him do something with some schoolwork, and his birth certificate had 5 first names on it. And I asked his grandmother, who he lived with, why that was. And she said his mama wanted to make sure that his father's name was on his birth certificate. And I can remember contemplating the reality of what that means for that kid. Not knowing, and the absence of that father in his life. And he grew up in a home where his mother was in prison and his grandmother was doing the best she could. And, I grew up in a house that had a father, and I'm a father and a grandfather, but being exposed to the challenges that come for a young man or a young woman who don't have the support and the strength and all that comes with that. It's a stark reminder of why the work that you do is so incredibly important, and why we have to consider, and frankly, here's the thing: government can't solve problems like that, and government shouldn't be solving problems like that. Government is not the answer to the greatest challenges that we face in our day, but government can create an environment where the people can address those issues like you are, through nonprofits and community organizations and churches and faith-based partners. And some of those we've partnered with at the state. And government can't solve the deepest and most important of the problems, and the lack of fatherhood in our society is certainly one of those things. The other thing I did, by the way, I worked in a prison reentry program and served on the board of that for like 20 years, 25 years. And if you want to understand the effects, and you all know all this, but these are the things that informed some of my views as I came into this role. Sit around a table in prison with 5 or 6 men and ask them to tell you their story from the time they could remember their life. Tell me what you remember about being 5 and 6 and 8 and 10. I don't want to know about what you did to get in here. I'd like to know about what your life was like when you were 5 years old. And you learned very quickly that many of the men incarcerated in our system share some common things in their life that you are working hard to address, to fill in the gap, to mitigate the damage, to redeem stories. Redemption is a powerful tool in the life of a person who has had a gap. And it's possible. Redemption is powerfully possible. I personally am a guy who, as I mentioned, that, circumstances coming together are God's thing. I do think God's a redeemer, and he uses the most difficult things in our lives, and he certainly has in my own personal life, to bring about positive outcomes. And that's what y'all are all about. And I'm here to say thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for engaging. Thank you being interested in this subject and for weighing in on this subject and for partnering. We desperately need partners in this state to help us interact with the greatest challenges that the people of Tennessee face. And one of them is the subject that y'all are talking about for the last 2 or 3 days. So I'm really proud to be here. I'm real proud of Clarence and the work that he's doing. Really, really grateful. I'll close with this. I oftentimes tell our team, regardless of what group it is, there are 7 million people who are hoping that we will do what they can't do. There are a lot of things the government shouldn't and couldn't be doing, but there are things it can do, and it can create the kind of environment that can make life better for every single Tennessean, and there's 7 million of them. 7 million people hoping we'll do it right. 7 million people hoping we will engage. 7 million people hoping that we will set aside all the political differences and all the stuff that is not important in government and actually engage in the things that are life-changing and that will, in fact, impact people's lives in a positive way. And there's 7 million people counting on us. So lean in. We have one shot at it as we spend our lives doing the things that are going to positively impact those 7 million people. And I'm really grateful you're leaning in. So thank you. Thank you for having me this morning.